Hello and welcome to my podcast, Andrea TLC, in which TLC stands for The Life Coach. I am your host, Andrea. Thank you for joining me today. I had a different podcast that I wanted to do, but something came up and I had to go through something this past week, and it was weighing heavy on my heart. And so therefore I decided maybe I should talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I'm not real good at talking about grieving, having a loss of anything. So yeah, that's what I went through this past week. And so I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about how to cope with grief and how to heal from it. So at some point in our lives, we all have to go. Some point in our life, we're all going to go through grief. Whether we're grieving the loss of a loved one, a relationship, a dream, even. The experience of grief can be very challenging. I don't know. I feel that there is also an opportunity for growth, healing, and transformation that goes along with grief. Let's try to go through some strategies for coping with grief. And let's go through some strategies for coping with grief and finding healing. And we're going to try to do it together. Let's first talk about what grief actually is. Grief is a natural response to a loss, and it can manifest in a lot of different ways, from intense sadness and despair to anger, guilt, numbness. I think that's the one that I go through. It's a thing to it's my coping mechanism. I'm not saying it's the right one or even a healthy one. I'm just telling you my experience, how I deal with it. A lot of times is I don't deal with it. So one of those, if you don't think about it, it'll just go away type of deal. But we all know that that's not true by any means. It's important to remember that grief is a highly individual experience. There's no right or wrong way to deal with grief as long as you're dealing with it. You can't ignore it. You can't think that it doesn't exist because it's painful. It hurts. You have to deal with it. What are some common reactions to grief? I don't know. It's like some people feel overwhelmed. It's like an overwhelming of sadness and despair, while others might feel angry, resentment, guilty. And again, while others, like myself, just numb. Like me, feel numb. They're just going through the motions of life without really feeling anything at all. What are some ways of coping? What are some ways that we can cope with it, with grief, that is? One of the most important things that we can do is seek support. One of the most important things we can do is seek support from our loved ones. Surround yourself with people who love you and care for you, who are willing to listen without judgment. This is not a time for anyone to be judging how you feel or why you feel the way that you do. You need to be with someone who understands and who are just really there to listen. It's important to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally. Finding meaning and healing in the midst of grief can be, again, very, very challenging, but it's possible, but it's possible. One way that can be helpful is to find ways to honor the memory of your loved one whether through creating a memorial, participating in a charity event, or simply just sharing stories and memories of that person with others. Talk about it and how they made you feel, you know, different things that y'all did together and stuff that were funny moments, just stuff like that. There's ways to support others who are grieving. So if not you, maybe someone else is grieving. So again, one of the most important things that you can do is just simply be there for them. Listen, and listen without judgment. Be that shoulder for them to cry on. It's important to offer practical support, like helping with errands if they may have it, chores, check in on them regularly to see how they're doing. Sometimes that is all they really need, is to know that there's someone out there that cares about how they feel, what they're going through. I hope you find these ways of coping with grief helpful. I hope you find it informative. Remember that grief is a natural part of life, and it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, as long as you're true to yourself and acknowledge your feelings. Know that you're not alone. There are people who are out there who love you and care about you and want to support you through this very, very difficult time. So allow them to do so. Until next time, peace, love, and light.